Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen.
And my name is Katie. And we want to spend a few minutes a day with you walking through the New Testament, one chapter at a time. This year, we will fix our gaze upon Christ so that we may know him, not only with our minds, but with our hearts.
Together, we will learn that who Jesus is changes everything. Welcome back to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen Schmucker, and we are making our way through the book of Matthew. Today, we are in Matthew 22. Can you believe it? We are almost finished with the first book in the New Testament. This year, we are studying the New Testament chapter by chapter, and it has already been an amazing journey. As always, I'm using the free Behold reading plan and the Behold study guides from the Daily Grace Co., and I'll link those for you in the show notes. We open chapter 22 with a parable about a royal wedding. Our culture loves a royal wedding, and though royal weddings weren't being broadcast on television while the world watched in Jesus' day, I am sure that he used this parable because he knew that it would catch people's attention. In this parable, a king invites guests to the wedding of his son, but the guests, well, they didn't come. He sent the servants again to call the people to come to the wedding feast, but they didn't even pay attention to him. Eventually, the servants who were sent to announce the wedding were mistreated and killed. The king flings wide the invitation to all. People were brought in from the streets to the marriage of the son. At the end of the parable, we see that there are some who thought they were invited, but they came without wedding clothes and were thrown out. Do you catch what Jesus is trying to communicate here? The servants who went to proclaim the wedding of the Son point us to the prophets who proclaimed the message of the upcoming Messiah. Even the last of the prophets, John the Baptist, did this from birth until death. Yet, the people disregarded them and even killed them. Getting grace and mercy, the heavenly King swings wide the invitation to all, not just to the people of Israel. He welcomes the outcast, the marginalized, the broken, and the Gentile. The call of the Father is to come to the marriage feast of the Son. He calls us to come, and the beauty of this parable is to see the opening of the kingdom for all to come in. And yet, the parable ends on a sobering note when we see that some think they were invited, but they are not dressed properly. Now, this has nothing to do with our physical clothing. Most scholars believe that the dress here represents righteousness, the righteousness of Christ that clothes every child of God. Though in a smaller way, it can represent the righteous life of a believer as well. Though our own righteousness does not save us the way that the righteousness of Jesus does, it is evidence to the world around us that we are children of God. What a gift it is to know that the call of God to us is come. In the following verses, the Pharisees and the Herodians tried to trick Jesus. This is notable because these two groups of people hated each other, and yet they conspired against Jesus together. They try to trick Jesus, again asking if they should pay taxes to Caesar. Jesus teaches them a far greater lesson. He holds up a denarius, which was a coin at the time, and asks whose image is on the coin. They respond that it is Caesar, and it is then that Jesus says to give or render to Caesar what is already his. But the message is far deeper than just a reminder to pay your taxes. It is a reminder that the coin that bears the image of Caesar belongs to Caesar, and the people that bear the image of God, they belong to God. We are his, and everything that we are is his. We are his, and we owe not just our money, but our lives to him. The next trap set before Jesus is by the Sadducees. The Sadducees were those that did not believe in the resurrection. So it is ironic that their question is all about the resurrection and life after death. They ask about a woman who is married and her husband dies, and then they make up an elaborate scenario in which she marries the brothers. One after another, they die until she has married 7 of them. The question is, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? Jesus responds that in the resurrection, they neither marry or are given in marriage, and that he is the God of the living and not the dead. Some scholars take this to mean that there is no marriage in heaven, though they often disagree on the specifics of what that means, and others take it to mean that there are no new marriages in heaven. Regardless of what it means, we can know that there are no tears or sadness in heaven, so we will be perfectly content in God's plan. Jesus winsomely answered every accusation made against him. The chapter wraps up with a reminder of the central commandments to love the Lord with all that we are and to love our neighbors as ourselves. All of Scripture can be summarized in these 2 points, 2 simple commands that we struggle with each and every day. Jesus' death was approaching, and his final question in this chapter about the Messiah is part of what is pushing these religious leaders over the edge. They know that he is claiming to be the Messiah, the promised son of David, the Son of God himself, and the Lord of all. He is, and yet they would not accept their promised Redeemer. As we behold Jesus today, I want you to just stop and think about him. We have seen so much of his life in just a few short weeks. Today we see him as calling us to come to the marriage supper, to come and find satisfaction in him, to come and surrender to the one in whose image we are made, to come and know the God of the living, to come and love him with everything that we are, heart, soul, and mind, to love others the way that we have seen him love us. He calls us to come. Today, my prayer for each of us is that we will answer his call.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. Don't forget to check out the show notes for helpful links and resources related to today's episode. And make sure you are following at Daily Grace Podcast on Instagram for more A Year in the Bible content, and at the Daily Grace Co. for all things Bible study resources. We can't wait to study again with you tomorrow. Bye, friends.